Welcome to the Put On Waivers Media Group, home of the Put On Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome, everybody, to the glorious episode of the Student Body Right USC podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, and I'm always podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. PORSBR is my Twitter handle, so you can catch us there. You got to pivot quickly in this world of football. You can't be sitting there, feeling bad about the loss to Notre Dame. We got to move on. We have our special guest on here, JT Wistrchill. He is going to talk us about the Utah Utes and what's going on with them. They've had an interesting season, especially without Cam Rising. Cam Rising has not been there for the whole year. I don't know. From what I read about the injury, I think he just needs to worry about getting that leg right, to be honest with you, to maybe have a possible NFL career, because that could be on the kaputs as well too. But hey, listen, thank you for joining us here. For my first question would be, with all the attention to Deion Sanders and everything like that in the conference and everything like that, and I know that Washington and Oregon have had some really good candidates for a head coach of the year, but when you go into a season not knowing who your starting quarterback is, having to score defensive touchdowns to beat UCLA, like all this stuff like that, I mean, what about the job that Kyle Whittingham has done this year? He's been pretty good.
It's incredible. With as good as all those coaches you just highlighted are, I still feel comfortable saying I believe Kyle Whittingham is the best coach in the Pac-12. Now, I can very much hear a Lincoln Riley argument, considering he's the one who's won 2 playoff games. But, man, it's just so hard to win at a place like Utah. I mean, Dwayne, like, not a lot of people want to come to Utah, but no. Kyle Whittingham has helped transform that place. And I will say, because I used to live in Utah, like, once you get out to Utah, it's awesome. But the perception around Utah is really negative. So it is a credit to Utah that they've recruited this talent that has allowed them to continue to win games while they're dealing with so many injuries. Key amongst them, not just Cam Rising, but Brant Kuithe too. How many teams could be winning games against quality teams when you're playing these really good programs without your top quarterback and your number one pass catcher? That's a testament to Utah. The Utah offense has really struggled, but this is a Utah defense that ranks in the top 5 in nearly every category in college football. And unlike Michigan, they've actually played legitimate teams. It's not like they're playing with a cupcake schedule here. So I'm very impressed by Kyle Whittingham, Morgan Scalley, Andy Ludwig, the entirety of the staff. And it's the reason that they at least have a chance going out to Southern California to take on the Trojans.
No question about it. If this game is played in the teens or the 20s, you gotta like Utah to try to come out on top. What made you? What do you think? What's the reason you feel Bryson Barnes was the choice at quarterback? I know they went back and forth for a little bit.
Yeah, so that's been a roller coaster. They started the year with the dual threat approach against Florida, and it worked really well. But Bryson's best pass of the game did come on his very first pass of the game. So it was one of those things that it was kind of inconsistent throughout. Nate made some plays with his legs against when you took on Baylor. Bryson was really bad, probably the worst game he's played as a Utah quarterback. But then you get Nate Johnson, who came in late in that game, led the touchdown drive, and everyone's like, oh, it's Nate's team. But then Nate against Oregon State, it was brutal. And against UCLA the week before, you only managed 7 points offensively. So you got to face the tough realization that Nate Johnson isn't quite ready yet, and you have to go back to a guy in Bryson Barnes who has won games in the Pac-12, whether you look at the most recent one that they just got against Cal or last year, Washington State, showed up in the Rose Bowl. Bryson's accuracy. Nate Johnson is much more athletic, but it's the accuracy for Bryson, and Bryson does not turn the ball over. Nate Johnson did have a little bit of a fumbling problem. We didn't even see Nate on the field last week, which is a little bit surprising. We didn't see some of those packages. USC will more than likely have to take on Bryson Barnes. I do not think Cam Rising is going to play in this game. I always thought that if he was going to play soon, he would play against Cal and then against the Trojans, but that's just not what happened.
Yeah, I would not. I mean, listen, I mean, as much as, because USC is kind of in a little bit of a no-win situation, because the casuals, even if USC beats Utah, number 16 Utah, at home, instead of saying it's a quality win, they're going to say, oh, I mean, the casuals, we all know who those people are. They're just going to say, they're usually on Big Fox and ESPN. They're gonna say, "Oh, they beat the only ranked team they beat was Utah without Cam Rising." But I mean, but for USC after the bye, it just has not really been the same offensively for them. It hasn't been the same period for them. So like they need a solid victory. And as good as this defense is, like Caleb really needs to just take the play in front of him. I think what we're seeing right now is just him really just kind of run around and make these miracle plays. Give credit to Notre Dame. They were in that 2 deep shell and they refused to get out of it. They said, no matter what happens, we're not going to give up play down the field. Mm-hmm. And I think that could be something that, Utah might try to do as well. But we'll see what happens as far as that goes. Who are some of the guys who stepped up in spite of these injuries to keep the Utes in the mix here in the Pac-12?
For sure. I would say Jonah Ellis, he's second in the nation currently in sacks. He has just been on a tear. It's been fun to watch him go to work out there. Utah is already down one starting defensive end, but they do have 2 other really strong players. One of those other guys actually had 2 sacks even last week, and the third one deflected a pass. And that's something we saw Notre Dame have a lot of success against the USC offensive line, was getting pressure and getting after Caleb. All the interceptions came with him under duress when Caleb Williams is able to escape the pocket, buy time, and just have the time to throw in general. He's exceptionally accurate. I've been lucky enough to see a lot of talented college quarterbacks play. Caleb Williams is easily the best quarterback I've ever seen at the collegiate level in person. Mm-hmm. That's what I'll say about Caleb Williams. I'm a huge fan of his game. But Jonah Ellis is the first one. Utah had a safety in Sione Vaki. He's a very good safety, one of the best in the Pac-12. They used him at running back last week, and he had 150 yards. So he's got some work to do to pass Travis Hunter as the best dual threat player in college football. But man, when you have 150 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns, including a 72-yard rushing touchdown, that's one way to get it going. We already mentioned Bryson Barnes a little bit. Bryson is a game manager. If the offensive line does their job, if the running game is there, if wide receivers are open, Bryson can hit them at times. Now, he will miss some throws, but he can hit those players and make plays. But if the game falls apart, it's like, Bryson, carry us to a victory. That is not where game managers struggle, and that is where game managers struggle, and that's exactly where Bryson Barnes is going to struggle if that's how it plays out. And, pass catcher-wise, because Utah doesn't have Cam Rising, it's hard to really give a game changer from a pass catcher. Utah's yet to have a pass catcher go over 100 yards on the season. But look for the true freshman, Mikey Matthews, who's now led Utah multiple games in receiving to make a couple of grabs in this one. But I'm really excited to see if USC can protect Caleb in this game, because to your point about those kind of questions that are out there about USC, I think if you shut down the Utah offense, there should still be questions, because we've seen teams like UCLA do that, and Baylor had success against the Utah offense for the majority of that game. So I'd still have questions about the defense. But if your offense scores over 30 against this Utah defense that has held everyone except for Oregon State under 15, Oregon State under 15 points, then you should be feeling pretty good about the USC offense getting back on track.
I mean, I'm looking at the 24 point, 28 point mark. I think that would be the point where USC should feel comfortable. I know they're capable of scoring a lot of points, but if you get Utah in that kind of game, then the defense that has all those pass rushers, one of the league leaders in tackles for loss, USC's defensive line can go to work and make him make plays. Like if you sit there and let Jackson and how you pronounce the safety's name?
Sione Vaki.
Vabaki, the Vabaki running back slash defensive back. If you let him go do his thing, like it's just not gonna. You're making the game easier. You're putting that defensive coordinator who's very talented in play. You're putting Ty Willingham in play, and that's where USC could get themselves in a whole lot of trouble as far as that goes. What do you? Is it kind of like a pass season for you guys? Like, I mean, because do you feel like this is a team that can win the Pac-12 still, with USC, with Oregon, with Washington, or do you think this is just like, hey, this is a great finish to what has been a really good Utah run in this conference, and now you guys going somewhere else?
I always said if this team still is, because I thought Cam Rising was going to return, and even without Brant Kuithe, I just have so much belief in Cam Rising. I thought this team could still be the Pac-12 champion. And technically everything is still on the table for them. But the hard part is I just don't see how this Utah team beats USC, beats Oregon the next week. They'll beat Arizona State, but then they have to play Washington going up to at Washington, which we just saw how good that Washington team is. So I don't see it as this team is currently constructed right now, a path for them to be Pac-12 champs because they haven't played. They have 3 top 10 teams coming up in the next 4 weeks, and their offense, in terms of total yards per game, currently ranks 115th in the country. That's only 15 spots ahead of Iowa. So that shows you how bad Utah's been offensively.
That's tough. And the Oregon game is in Bryce Eccles.
It's at home, and Utah is very good at home, but man, I mean, even that Bo Nix Oregon team, right? Like with all the playmakers,
they're just still really good.
Bo Nix is a top, I might still say a top 5 quarterback in college football.
Yeah.
Bryson Barnes probably isn't even one of the 100 best and might not even be best 150 quarterbacks in college football. So at what point does the quarterback difference in that game just become too glaring? And that's where it's just going to be so hard for you to, even if Cam comes back. I mean, your welcome back game is against USC. You got Oregon next week and you play Washington 2 weeks later. It's just, and no one coming off the injury that Cam Rising has plays well their first couple of starts. So that's where it does feel like Utah missed the boat. But as crazy as that all sounds, me saying what's more than likely going to happen, Utah as a 1-loss Pac-12 team right now, everything is still on the table for them if they can continue to find ways to win. So that's why, do I think this team is a Pac-12 contender at the moment? No. Would I fall out of my chair if they're somehow in the Pac-12 championship game? No, because it's Kyle Whittingham, and I trust the staff and the talent. And they've already beaten teams like Florida, Baylor, already mentioned what they did against Cal, UCLA. They just keep finding ways.
Yeah, they keep finding ways. They are a well-coached team. They do the little things. And I think that's the biggest thing that we are kind of in our land. We're just we want them. We want USC to do the little things, and we think that will take them to victory as well. But it should be a good game. Should be fun times. It's coming to the end. The Pac-12 is coming to the end. So we all see the light at the end of the tunnel as far as that goes. Any prediction you have for that one? Or you want to save it for your shows?
No, I'll drop one right now. I'll give you one off the top of my head. You know what? Look, this is not me on Locked On Utes, so I will be 1,000% honest. Maybe by Friday I will have talked myself into Utah for my own show. But right now, I do think USC wins it. I'm going to go USC 32, Utah 17. I think the Utah offense is going to struggle in this one. I think the Trojans are going to be ready. And it'd be one thing if this was a Utah team that didn't beat USC 3 times in a row and 2 times last year. But that's not the case. So I think the loss last week for your USC and then just the motivation for Caleb and Lincoln Riley to stop losing this Utah team, I'd be surprised. But I think there's a chance Utah can win it. But I do believe the Trojans are going to win this one.
It'll be 2 ways. I think it'll either be just a crash and burn. This is all done for USC. Or it'll just be very similar to what you put down. Because I mean, this would be like the fifth week in a row they haven't played up to their potential. At some point, they have to kind of say, "Hey, let's start playing football," because they really struggled recently. All right, JT, can you let everybody know where they can find you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at JT Wistrchill or at Locked On Utes is where I have the show listed. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube. And Dwayne, always great joining you on this. And like I said, Pac-12's coming to an end, so I'm not sure unless somehow these 2 teams make it in the Pac-12 championship game. We won't get to talk about Utah USC for a while. It's been a fun rivalry that's kind of been built up over the years, and always enjoyed coming on to talk with you about it. You do a great job.
No, take care, man, and congrats on the new job.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Dwayne. Have a good one.
Yeah, take care.